All right. Well, good morning. This is the fire weather briefing for Saturday, August 16th. There's myself, Stephen in Spokane, and then Logan is on from Seattle. And I just checked our participant list. I didn't see anybody, but just a reminder that if you do join in on our live call, it is recorded. And by joining, you are accepting that you're participating in the session and that you are accepting that it's being recorded, and to make sure your cameras are off. So let's go ahead and get started with our current satellite image. You can see there's a fairly deep low pressure system there in the Gulf of Alaska, and that is pushing through a cold front here that has just started to cross the Cascades and actually coming into eastern Washington this morning. And this is a little bit old, but that cloud cover there you can see coming across the state, and there is a fairly significant moisture plume with that. So that is what we're going to be dealing with our weather today. This is what the radar is looking like. So as I mentioned, that front has crossed the Cascades, and we are starting to get some light rain even into the Spokane area, just starting to fall here, and also up into North Idaho. And this is the 24-hour precipitation accumulations. Logan, why don't you go ahead and begin on your side? Looks like you're doing quite well over there in Western Washington.
Yeah, we got quite a bit of rain on our side throughout the day yesterday. You can see in the lowlands we got around half an inch to near an inch across most of the lowlands. On the Pacific coast, it looks a little underdone, but we got several inches of rain there, and as well as along the west slopes of the North Cascades, where we got upwards of 2 to 4 inches in some spots up there. So pretty good wetting rains for our side.
Yeah, that is great news. What a treat for August. And then just to preface this as well, there is a RAWS data outage, so you're not going to see any of the RAWS sites on here for the accumulations. But east of the Cascade Crest, we have done fairly well as well. Not as, or accumulations not as high as west of the crest, but I did get a report from the incident meteorologist on the Palmas fire, and he said that they got some spots near the crest of around an inch. And as you get to the fire itself, more in the range of a 1/4 inch to about a 1/2 inch for spots there. And then as that front crossed a little bit further east across the Waterville Plateau and the Okanagan Highlands, you can see some green shades there. Now, a lot of this is radar estimated, I believe, but there are some spots there that look like they got over a 1/2 inch as well. But you can see there are some that are closer to a 1/4 inch. And then, as I mentioned before, it is just starting to get into the Spokane area, Northeast Mountains, and into the Idaho Panhandle. So you're not going to see too many accumulations on here quite yet. Okay, Logan, you want to talk about your side here for Matrix?
Sure. So today we'll have continued showers and a very slight chance perhaps for a couple thunderstorms in the North Cascades. Pretty low probability, but still want to just throw that out here. Showers will taper off tonight into Sunday, and then we'll still remain fairly cool and moist through the beginning of next week. And doesn't look like until mid to late week, perhaps Thursday, where we really start to warm and dry out as we finally kick out that upper level trough in the area. But generally, no fire weather concerns through the next 7 days.
Okay, great. Thanks, Logan. Okay, and as we shift a bit further east into eastern Washington, I showed that band of rain coming through. So it's going to be a fairly light, steady rainfall with that into through the morning hours, and then transitioning to some showers this afternoon. There is a possibility for some isolated thunderstorms, and I have a graphic after this to kind of highlight that a bit more. And then as North Idaho is the same sort of story, just a little bit later with the passage of that cold front. And then through the rest of the week, there is a 20% chance for some showers on Monday, late Sunday night into early Monday morning, could have some showers pushing through. And then it won't be until we get into Wednesday that we have another, looks like frontal passage, cold front passage, that would be fairly dry, not expecting precipitation with that, but could pick up the winds a bit more on Wednesday. and getting a bit drier with our relative humidity. So I did highlight that as a potential elevated threat for fire weather here in eastern Washington. It's just locally breezy North Idaho. And then it's the same as what Logan said, west of the Cascades, we are going to be warming out and drying over here as well. So this is a graphic here just to show the potential for some lightning today. I went in ahead and highlighted the eastern districts of eastern Washington and North Idaho as an elevated threat. Looking late morning, right around 1100 hour there into the early afternoon, could linger on into the late afternoon hours as well. But it kind of looks like just as that front passes and we get a little bit of sun breaks here, might just destabilize enough that we get some isolated cells with lightning with that. So a 15 to 25%, maybe around 30% chance near the Canadian border for thunderstorms. I do not expect a whole lot of lightning, though. If we get any, it would be fairly infrequent as far as cloud-to-ground lightning strikes today. Okay, moving on. The only hazards we have is a hydraulic outlook or hydrologic outlook there on the west side of the states. Logan, did you want to expand on that a little bit?
Not really, since the front has moved through. The main hydrologic threats are now over. I guess the only lingering threat would be the potential for rising rivers throughout the day today, but those should be coming down later.
Okay, sounds good. All right, let's go to talking a little bit more specific for our weather. And I'll go ahead and talk about our max temperatures, min humidity, and winds first. So it's going to be a fairly cool day, below average for temperatures. And east side, maybe getting up into the low 80s. Looks like west of the Cascades, mostly into the 70s there. Relative humidities with the rain, as you may have expected, are going to be fairly high, quite high there on the west side of the Cascades, even fairly high here east of the crest. Minimum relative humidities getting into maybe the upper 30s just in the lee of the Cascades, low 40s as you get closer to the Panhandle. And then Idaho Panhandle itself will have a hard time even getting below about 60% there. And then for the winds, they will be a bit breezy today, right along the cold front here. Could be some south to southwest winds. And then as that pushes through the cold front, we could see some gusts that are a little bit higher in that 20 to 25 mile per hour range, and could see a little bit more of a westerly, kind of a southwest orientation to that wind. So this is what we're looking at today, a little breezy. And then for our chance of wetting rains, so since that front is already pushed through the Cascades, it's a little bit higher for the chance of wetting rains here on the east side under that rain band. So 60 to 80%, even up to about a 90% chance up into North Idaho for the most part today. And probability of thunderstorms, which we already touched on already. You can see North Cascades, a little bit higher percentage there, 10 to 15% chance. And as we get into Northeast Washington, 10 to 20% chance, and to North Idaho, 25 to 30% chance. So a little bit higher there into North Idaho for the thunderstorms today. And I wanted to move on to day 3. So this would be on Monday, just to highlight the relative humidities. They are going to be decreasing a bit. A little bit lower here in the eastern Washington, North Idaho, getting into the 20% range, and the winds also will be a little breezy. Nothing of too much concern, but just to mention that there will be some breezy winds, especially as we get into early next week, as we kind of go through Monday, Tuesday, and then I will also highlight Wednesday here in a minute. But in general, a sustain like 8 to 12, and then maybe seeing some gusts to 18 to 20 in the Cascade Gaps, and then also up the Okanagan Valley could see some winds a little bit breezy continuing for early next week. And then as we go into Wednesday, since there it does look like there could be another little wave, cold front passage coming through, the minimum relative humidities will be getting a little bit closer to the critical levels here into the low 20% for the most part. and the winds a little bit more breezy, more so into like the Spokane area, Palouse. Could see winds more out of the west, southwest, southwest, where sustain still in that sort of 8 to 12, and then gusts into the maybe up to around 18 miles per hour. So be kind of keeping an eye on that. It's still a little ways out. Let's see if the models kind of consolidate on winds being a little bit more breezy for Wednesday. And then just wanted to show the day 7. So this would be towards the end of the extended portion of the forecast. The temperatures really starting to increase. Will be above average by this time. Looks like 80s in the valleys west of the Cascades, and then getting into the low 90s east of the Cascades. And then the relative humidities will be quite a bit drier as well, even decreasing in western Washington, but getting back into the teens here, eastern Washington and the northern Panhandle. And for the precipitation amounts, let's look at days 1 through 3 here. Now just touch on eastern Washington, North Idaho. So this is primarily what we can expect with the rest of the rainfall for today. And this second tier of green is between 1/10 and 1/4 of an inch. In general, looking at 1/10 to 2/10 of an inch for most of the areas, including the basin. But as you get up into the higher terrain of northeast Washington and northern Panhandle, there is a better chance for wetting rains of even up above 1/4 of an inch there as well. It'll be kind of a fairly narrow rain band that comes through before we see some showers in the afternoon. Logan, did you want to touch on anything else with this graphic for your side?
Sure. Yeah, I'll just quickly mention here for Western Washington, most of this QPF will be for the rest of today and early on Sunday when we still have those showers. We could see potentially some additional wetting rains in the western slopes of the Olympics and the North Cascades. But most everywhere else will be very light accumulations.
Okay, sounds good. Okay, and then looking at some trends here, we'll start over on the west side. Okay, go ahead and take it away, Logan.
Thanks. Yeah. Overall, pretty seasonal pattern, even a little bit below normal through kind of the rest of the week. Pretty light winds as well. Not really until Thursday and beyond is when we start to see our temperatures start to warm up. Those min RHs start to dip below 40% there again. Other than that, I think that's pretty much all I have here.
Okay. Yeah, it's nice to be talking about fairly quiet with fire weather conditions. Okay, I'll touch on a few sites over here as we cross east of the Cascade Crest. This is the Douglas Rise. I just wanted to mention it's the same sort of trends, warmer temperatures as we go through the week, relative humidities coming down, especially into that Thursday, Friday timeframe where we get quite a bit warmer and drier. But also the winds just remaining a little bit elevated. This would be for Monday, as I mentioned before. Tuesday, could see some sustained winds in that 10 to 12 miles per hour. Wednesday, this might be a little bit more of a peak. We'll see. Like I said, some of the model guidance are showing potentially another little cold front coming through. So those winds might be increasing a little bit there on Wednesday. Shifting a little bit further east, we'll look at Spokane, and this will show that Wednesday period here a little bit more, showing a little bit more of a peak in the winds there. You can see those relative humidities, not at critical levels there, but getting a bit close. As we get warmer and drier, the winds will be a bit weaker. And then we do have a fairly large fire there in near Lake Pend Oreille. I wanted to mention the Hoodoo Rise, where see the winds are fairly weak into the early portion of next week, and then could see some sustained winds in that maybe 4 to 7 miles per hour range there, and the relative humidities minimums getting into the lower 20%. And then also warming up near 90 degrees, especially as you get to Friday there, and the relative humidity is getting into the upper teens. Okay, finishing up with our 8 to 14 day outlook. A better chance for warmer than average temperatures, and then also holding on to just landing above average for the precipitation outlook. And that concludes our briefing for today. Logan, did you have anything else you wanted to add before we wrapped up?
I don't think so.
All right, sounds good. Well, thank you, and we'll wrap it up for today and be back tomorrow.
All right, sounds good.
All right, thanks.
Thank you.